everyone. Welcome to another exciting episode of VentureBeat's What to Think podcast. This week it's me, Dylan Tweney, and I'm joined by Jordan Novet.
Hey, Dylan.
Hey, thanks for coming on to the podcast.
Happy to be back.
We're going to have a special guest today, Benj Edwards, a journalist who has written about the life and afterlife of Prodigy, the online service that, I don't know, were you old enough to use Prodigy?
Yes, I was.
Okay, good, Jordan. We'll have a blast from the past in a little bit. But first, the top news headlines, and we will tell you what to think. First of all, Microsoft. Layoffs are probably coming. In fact, by the time you hear us in this here podcast, Microsoft may have already announced layoffs. Not exactly a big surprise, though, eh, Jordan?
That's right. Last week, we had Satya Nadella coming out with 3,100-word, I believe, memo to everyone.
It felt like a really, really long dissertation, like he was trying to impress his professors or something.
And you know what? I started reading it and I thought, this is going to be short. Satya is going to be really impressive. He always quotes Nietzsche and all these other people.
Smart
He's
guy.
going to be eloquent and short and to the point. But, it started off really nice. They're a productivity and platforms company for the cloud first and mobile first world. The cloud first and mobile first, they've been saying for a while, but the productivity and platform intention is different from what they were talking about with devices and services. And he said he's going to change it. He's going to change the company. They're going to be more agile,
right,
and changing how much data they use in the way they come up with new products. And to do that, they're going to have to make changes in the workforce. And hence now we hear that they're going to lay off lots of people, maybe the biggest ever. Is that what I heard right?
Yeah, or at least the biggest since, the biggest in years, the biggest in at least 5 years. It may involve thousands of people. Now, I have to say, I thought Nadella's memo was a classic of obfuscation. I mean, he never really said, we're going to have to lay people off, or this is going to be painful, and I want you guys to buckle down and bear with me.
Very subtle.
It was just a lot of verbiage. And I was also not all that impressed by the whole platforms and productivity pitch, because I'm like, isn't that what Microsoft has been doing for decades with Windows as the platform and Office as productivity?
Makes sense. Anyway,
Microsoft has not officially confirmed this as of now, but there are news reports from Bloomberg citing unnamed sources saying, it's coming, get ready. And it's also not really that much of a surprise because when Microsoft acquired Nokia, it added about 30,000 people. And they did say at the time of the acquisition that they were going to recognize some cost savings as part of that merger.
A lot of marketing people in both companies they could probably eliminate.
There are undoubtedly tons of redundancies. So it's not going to be a pretty picture probably, but it's one of those things that big corporations after giant mergers often have to do.
And the other thing is this is Satya's time to make his mark and stand out from Steve Ballmer, Bill Gates, and try to make a company, a really big company, turn in a different direction, or maybe the old school direction, the direction of the roots of Microsoft. And to do that, you're going to have to do a shakeup, just like a new CEO will bring in new top management. I think this is a new direction. I mean, that's what we in the press are thinking. You're cautiously optimistic that this is a new page, a new leaf, whatever cliche you want to use for Microsoft.
One's got to hope, because Microsoft is not going away anytime soon, no matter what anyone thinks. No. And I would be much happier as a tech journalist if we had some interesting things to say about Microsoft.
There are some. They signed on, just to add a cloud tidbit. You know how I like to do that.
You go for it, Jordan.
They signed on to this containerization management open source project called Kubernetes that Google started off with. You didn't expect Microsoft to jump in on an open source project like this, which would mean that they're kind of supporting the idea that applications can move in a very easy way from one cloud to another. Onto Microsoft, obviously, but also very easily onto IBM's cloud and, of course, Google's cloud.
That's very interesting.
Very unlike Microsoft.
That does seem very atypical.
Yeah.
Well, I will tell you what to think about this memo. It comes from a long tradition of Microsoft executives' long-winded memos. But I really think Nadella should have just come out and said it. You're going to have to bite the bullet, and we're going to saw off a limb here.
Okay, well, we'll see how painful it is.
In other lighter news, Airbnb has a big press event scheduled for this week, and our reporter Harrison Weber looked into it. He found some evidence that they're revamping their look. There may be a new logo, which Airbnb people, I'm sure, are going to be very excited about. And they may be rolling out some new services, a new concierge service, perhaps.
Maybe a delivery service or a pickup service from the airport.
Yes. So Airbnb has been working on this for a while. They're experimenting with all kinds of different ways of adding to the experience of arriving in another city and staying in a new place. So it sort of makes sense for them to add things that would help you with your vacation and maybe eventually work towards being sort of the complete vacation package planning company.
That'll be cool. There could be a platform, maybe. They could do a lot of different things. A lot of companies want to do that, but you would probably do well to rebrand in going in that new direction. You want to have a new look. I think Harrison specifically said there's a new A, a logo A, rather than something that's from like Web 2.0. I think that's what he said. That the kind of script or the gentle, cool script you can see in some of these pictures. This new A that's sharper and edgy and kind of flat, along with this new Google, Microsoft, Apple flat UI.
Everything's flat these days. It's the new. Yeah. It's the new black. Flat is new. It's everywhere.
Yeah, Airbnb is going to be flat too.
Well, check out VentureBeat.com and you can check out the new logo. And once Airbnb actually announces this, we'll have that news too.
Sounds good.
Let's talk about interns.
Gosh.
Silicon Valley interns in particular. Not all of them, as it turns out, are making incredible amounts of money. But if you are at the top of your computer science class, you can make a ton of money in a summer as an intern.
Now, I remember that Palantir, this big data company, was offering these huge amounts of money. I didn't know exactly how much Twitter, Facebook, Google, Apple were actually paying. So it was really nice to see some data points actually on what these people were making every month.
We're talking $7,000 a month for an internship at Palantir. $6,700, almost $6,800 at Twitter, and $6,200 a month at Facebook. Yeah. Now, those are the averages. So you got to look, though. The writer who did this, Greg Ferenstein, for us, did a really nice chart which compares the highest and lowest salaries for interns. And it's pretty clear that if you're not one of those really hard to get, super in demand computer science interns, that you're going to be making far less, like $1,000 or $2,000 a month instead of $8,000 plus.
You could make $1,000 a month from Facebook, or you can make $8,400. That's a really big range.
It's a huge range, and it makes me wonder if there's some resentment among the ranks of interns.
Well, I can tell you,
I'd hate to sit at that lunch table.
Yeah, but at least you can put on your resume that you worked there. It doesn't say anything about unpaid internships. I know in media, they did that for a long time, and they're starting to go against, doing that. It doesn't look like Facebook and Google do that, even though the demand surely is there to work at those companies. So it was nice to see no mention whatsoever of, unpaid internships.
Yeah, undoubtedly. It's also a nice reminder. If you or anybody that you know is going to college, take some computer science classes.
Sounds like a good idea.
Be good for your career, I think. All right, we're going to move on to our guest in just a moment. But first, a quick message from our sponsor and host, New Relic. It's a software analytics company that makes sense of billions of pieces of data from millions of web and mobile apps. New Relic helps the people who build modern software understand the stories their data is trying to tell them. It also helps improve the performance and reliability of software, delivering a better experience for users and more success for your business. New Relic supports PHP, Python, Ruby, Java, .NET, Node, iOS, and Android apps. And I'm pretty sure they have an internship program too, so check it out. And with that, let's move on to our guest, Benj Edwards. Well, hey, Benj, thanks for joining us on the show. You are joining us from, Raleigh, North Carolina, is it?
Yes.
All right. Well, I'm very excited to talk to you because you did this story for The Atlantic this month about Prodigy, the online information service. And for me, it was a huge blast from the past because I used Prodigy in the 90s. In fact, I wrote a book, which was a guide to the hot online information services of the day, which unfortunately was 1994 that day.
Wow.
So it was like just before the web got really big. So my book was instantly obsolete. But I dedicated one loving chapter to all the cool stuff that's on Prodigy.
I may have a copy of that book somewhere. I've got a lot of books on that.
Really?
That period of time, yeah.
Oh, that'd be very exciting to me if I was in your
What was the title
library.
of it?
I'm embarrassed to say.
How to Do Everything Except the Internet?
Yeah, no, that's right. It was called The Traveler's Guide to the Information Highway.
Wow, that sounds familiar. Yeah, I may actually have it. I need you to autograph it for me.
Okay, when I see you, I'll do that. If you promise not to show anybody any copies of it.
Okay.
I'm actually downloading a copy as we speak.
Oh, Jesus. So, Benj, tell me, so for the people listening, go look up this story on The Atlantic because it's really good. It's a story of what happens when an online service disappears. It's called Where Online Services Go When They Die. And tell me how you got into this story.
Oh boy, it goes way back. Since I was a kid, I've been into online services. I think I first connected to a BBS when I was 11 years old, which was in '92. And in December of that year, I got a Prodigy connection kit for Christmas. And some of the illustrations on that article, or maybe one of them, is a screen capture of my dad videotaping me using it for the first time on Christmas Day '92. It was really
nice,
exciting. But unfortunately, I had this hand-me-down computer that only had a monochrome monitor, so I didn't get any color shots of the screen, which kind of sucks. But
and color was one of the really exciting things about Prodigy, right? Because you dial into CompuServe and it'd be like this green screen with just text, and you'd enter your username, which would be like 72345, 1896.
Yeah, lots of numbers.
And Prodigy was all graphical. It was like you'd use your mouse and stuff too, I think, right?
Yeah, it was a point-and-click interface. It was all graphical, and it was unlike anything else at the time it launched in 1988.
That's amazing. It was kind of the bomb for about, I don't know, 2 years maybe, and then AOL just totally overtook it by mailing discs to everyone in the country.
Yeah.
And then Prodigy started to decline, I guess, and eventually they, like everyone else, tried to turn themselves into an internet service. When did they actually pull the plug on the classic Prodigy?
That was, I think it was October 1st, 1999 is what I determined in my research. Because I talked to the guy who actually did it. His name is Michael Duino, I think is how it's pronounced.
So he was actually there, like, pulling the plug on the server?
Yeah, imagine when he told me this. I imagine him standing in some back room with a gigantic switch. And he toasted and said, "Here ends Prodigy," like that. He said, "No, I just logged into my computer and uploaded some kind of file that redirected all the people who connected into a page that said, use our ISP," and that was it.
Underwhelming. So now you're trying to dig up some of those, or you're working with people who are trying to dig up some of the old content that was in that, right?
Yes, I am actively doing it as well.
Okay.
Yeah, a fellow named Jim Carpenter was reading my blog, a post about that Christmas '92 thing that I did when I first used Prodigy a couple of years ago, and he posted a comment on my blog that said, "Hey, I found a way to go through these old files in the Prodigy client directory and pull out old Prodigy screens.
Wow.
I want to talk about it." And it was really exciting. So I emailed him, and I hope you can't hear the baby crying back here.
Yeah, that's okay. We're a family show.
Okay. She's pissed off because she wants to talk about Prodigy too.
Don't we all?
Yeah. So he said that he found a way. There's a file in the client directory called stage.dat that worked as a temporary cache, a temporary holding spot for data that was downloaded, so that if someone was using Prodigy and they went to the same page many times in a row or frequently, it would speed up the load times. So much like, web browsers do that caching too. They download, copies of the pages and the images and stuff. So it's much the same sort of principle. So it turns out that the last time someone connected to Prodigy, whenever that was before it shut down, and if they never used it again, the data that was downloaded in the cache is still there today, if they have those files.
So you could see the old screens and some of the data or conversations they might have had, or things they might have said on online bulletin boards. And
it seems like it's limited to graphical objects that weren't like emails and bulletin board things. I think that those the text portions of the site were overlaid onto graphical templates that were loaded, so that a lot of the things in the stage.dat files are template files that have just blank spaces where an email would say, "Hey Joe, how's it going?" or that kind of stuff.
Is that related to HyperCard and some of those Mac development tools?
Not at all. No such way.
Okay, so what actually...
It's kind of its own weird universe, wasn't it? With its own graphical interface, its own language for coding sites.
Yeah, it's bizarre. It's like the Klingons landed and decided to make an online service or something.
What were actually some of the programming tools? I'm just curious.
Well, they invented a couple proprietary programming languages to program the Prodigy pages themselves. They had some of the pages could have interactive elements that would, I don't know, do animations and do some of the game code on some of the games on the local end instead of on the server, so to speed up things. And one of them was called TBOL. I can't remember what it was, like Trintex Basic Object Language. And Trintex was the original name of the Prodigy company. And then they made another one later, something like PBOL or something. I can't remember what they said it was called. And so, yeah, they one of the fellows who founded Prodigy, named Dave Wax, who I talked to, described it like this: that he was there in the early days in Prodigy, when Prodigy was starting out, when it was still Sears and
IBM, right?
Yeah, Sears, IBM, and CBS, and before CBS dropped out. And he was sketching out how the service would work. And he wanted to use Forth as the embedded programming language. But he said then, once IBM got involved, they brought in all their engineers and tried to do everything in-house. The not invented here syndrome, they call it, I guess.
Yep.
So they wiped the slate clean, and they used his concepts, but they did completely new architecture, and they based it all on IBM servers and used OS2 as development tools best they could. Oh,
my
and all
goodness.
That stuff,
so that probably undoubtedly has confused things even more nowadays.
So yeah, if IBM could rule the world, if they had created the internet, it would have looked like Prodigy.
Okay, well, thank God they didn't win that one.
Yeah.
So in a way, what you're doing is like it's comparable to somebody trying to recreate the internet by collecting little bits of JavaScript and Flash code that people have cached in their browser caches.
Yeah, and if it weren't for the Internet Archive saving all those web pages from the old days, we would be doing the same thing for the early web.
We would. Right.
So I've saved all of my old cache files that I've found in my backups and web.
Wow.
You find some amazing old ads and stuff in there.
Now, why are you doing this, Benj? What's the excitement for you, or what's the relevance?
I don't know. I've never actually thought about it. Why am I here?
I think you sort of give a little hint of that, actually, Benj, in the last paragraph, or the second to last one of this article. You say, we as members of the public have to be vigilant about how our commercially driven society treats our shared cultural heritage. And I think you're actually making a very bold stand. I mean, you're editor-in-chief of Vintage Computing and Gaming, so this might be a professional, stance. But it seems like what you're saying is we must document the web stuff or the computer stuff, the digital stuff of our lives, just as much as we might hoard, important envelopes and checks and other documents we might have on hand. Am I getting on to kind of where you're at?
Yeah, the truth is that for the past few years, I've gotten on a sort of digital preservation kick. I wrote a couple articles for PC World and The Atlantic about the danger of digital rights management, preventing libraries making copies of digital artifacts, stuff like that. So my goal is to implant the idea out there that digital data and digital culture is just as valuable and important as any other culture that was written down in a paper medium or other kind of medium, video. And it's just beginning to dawn on lots of people at the same time that that's true. But we're also at the edge of a time when we can still back up some of that stuff that's getting lost before it's gone forever. So there's sort of a mad rush to try to find everything before the disks degrade and all that stuff.
Benj, I could actually just try barely to imagine your way of backing up information digitally. I imagine you're sort of like the digital equivalent of a hoarder, and you've had data loss of some kind, and you probably have like hard drives in every state. How and where do you preserve all this information that you're keeping?
That's a good question. I used to lose data every year when I was a kid when a hard drive would crash, and then I couldn't collect it. And then suddenly they got really reliable, and I've saved like everything I've ever had since 1993.
And where is it? What's it on?
Right now I have a RAID array, like a network attached storage box that has 5 disks. It's about 20 terabytes.
And it's all sitting on your desk?
Yeah, it's sitting right beside me.
What if there's a fire? What if something
Jordan's
happens
really
to your house?
concerned about this trove of important historical.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I'm getting concerned too.
I have offsite backups too.
Oh, okay, good.
In the cloud?
Yeah, that big puffy thing.
Okay. Okay. So have you actually talked at all with the Internet Archive people to sort of have a Prodigy division of their operations?
Not yet, but I speak closely with Jason Scott, who is sort of like a renegade digital archaeologist. Not renegade. He's sort of like they call him a maverick, I'd say, because he's self-trained and he is sort of a crusader for similar causes that I'm working on, digital preservation, that sort of thing. And he works for the Internet Archive now, and I quoted him, I think, a couple times in this article. And I'm sure, one of my ultimate goals whenever I acquire tons of this Prodigy information is to give it away to museums like the Computer History Museum and the Internet Archive and stuff like that to make sure it's not just sitting in my room here.
Well, that's really nice of you.
So now, if somebody just wants to like wallow in nostalgia and look at a whole bunch of screenshots from Prodigy, is there a website where do you have a slideshow somewhere where I can just go bathe in the glory of these old?
I don't want it to be that easy.
We have to work a little bit for our history still, huh?
This is the funny thing is my blog is using software that's like cutting edge in 2004. So if I want to make a gallery on my blog, I have to hand code every single image and make every thumbnail.
Uh-oh.
So it's going to take me 10 years before you see anything.
Yeah, and by that time, somebody's going to have to like do the preservation work on your blog.
Yeah, that's true. My blog is getting vintage already.
It's running in this old format known as HTML. We don't have any HTML readers anymore. What do we do with this?
Seriously, I'll probably put it on Flickr or something like that.
Yeah, cool.
Pretty soon. I'm starting to get more and more stuff from people. A number of Prodigy artists, ex-artists who worked there, saved their actual screen art and stuff that's really high quality, and it's really neat. And so I'm gonna collect every single screenshot I have and I can find and put it in one place for everybody to access, and then the internet can take it from there too.
Nice. So is your blog for now vintagecomputing.com? Is that the best place to find out more? Yes, there's. I just wrote a post about it on there, and I think it was yesterday, about the project that I'm working on now with Jim Carpenter. All right, and you can read about it there. Cool. VintageComputing.com. Cool. Well, Benj Edwards, thank you very much for joining us on the podcast today. It's really I didn't actually think we would spend 20 minutes talking about Prodigy, but I've been engrossed. This is really fascinating stuff, and I think you're doing good work digging some of this up and preserving it for historical reasons as well as just it's nice to look at some of this old stuff, I think. There's a great aesthetic quality to a lot of those images from Prodigy, which is very, very fun to look at. Can you say the same thing, by the way, about AOL? No quality there. There's no soul. There is no soul to old AOL screens, no doubt. I'm just kidding. I'll probably preserve that too someday. Okay, I'll be looking out for that. People. All right. Benj Edwards, thank you very much for joining us on What to Think. This has been another episode of VentureBeat's weekly tech podcast. I'm Dylan Tweney. And I'm Jordan Novet. Thanks again to New Relic, our podcasting host and sponsor. See you next time.